Welcome, everyone. Thank you for making the time to be here. I'm Melissa Susano, the Content Marketing Manager at After College. In today's webinar, we'll be talking about how to use social media to drive your university recruiting efforts. There are just a few business items for us to take care of before we start with the presentation. So the presentation will last about 30 minutes, and then I will stay on the line afterwards to answer questions, and I'll be joined by After College's CEO, Roberto Angulo. So we'll be here to field any questions that you may have. And if you do want to ask a question, be sure to use the questions function on GoToWebinar. So this is me. I think it's always useful to have an image, to be able to put a face to a name when you're attending one of these webinars. My name is Melissa Susano. I am the Content Marketing Manager here at After College, and I have been here since February 2013. And I manage the After College employer blog, which I'll be talking about throughout the presentation, so you'll get to learn a little bit more about that. The material in this webinar is based on my interviews with content marketers and social media managers, as well as university recruiting industry leaders. And if you're following along on social media, which we hope you are, since this webinar is all about social media, we would love it if you would be tweeting along with us. We created a special hashtag for this event on Twitter. It's #UREssentials. And I also created a tweet sheet for you, which you can find at the link here, bit.ly/UREssentials. If you go to the tweet sheet, you'll find some of the key points that I'll be talking about throughout the webinar, as well as links to the articles and the stats that I'll be sharing with you. And you can follow along and use that throughout the webinar, or you can also refer to it once the webinar is over, and we'll be sending you the link for that. But if you want to check it out now, it's bit.ly/UREssentials. So what will we be talking about today? Today's webinar is all about using social media to build your brand and attract more students. We are going to talk a little bit about why university recruiters should care about social media, a few of the most common social media platforms, some of their pros and cons, and a few best practices from industry leaders. We're also going to take an in-depth look at Salesforce's university recruiting team's approach to social media. And again, for those of you who are just joining us, we will be taking questions through the questions function on GoToWebinar at the end of the 30-minute presentation. So I wanted to start off with a few stats about social media and recruiting. JobVite did a social recruiting report in 2013, and they found that 78% of recruiters made a hire through social media. And LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter were the top 3 social media sites for recruiting. Marketing Charts did some research based on Edison research, and they found that 2/3 of Americans aged 12 and up have a social media account. And Digiday.com found that Facebook was used by 88.6% of 18 to 24-year-olds in November 2013. And LinkedIn also did some internal research, and they found that 74% of students use time on LinkedIn to research companies. And we talk about on the employer blog, quite often we talk about storytelling and content marketing and how these are becoming a really important part of building trust and employer brand. And we'll talk about that a little bit through this webinar, but I'd also encourage you to check out the After College employer blog to learn more about that. So now you have an idea about the number of students and recent grads who are on social media and why it makes sense for recruiters to be on there as well. So let's take a look at some of the major platforms and their advantages and disadvantages, and a few examples of how other university recruiters are using them. So let's start with Twitter. One of the distinguishing features about Twitter is that you have a 140-character limit, and your tweets can include links, mentions of other people or companies, and photos. You can send messages out to all of your followers or directly to one person, which is called a direct message, but you can only do this if you both follow each other. Hashtags are an important feature of Twitter. As I mentioned earlier, we have a special hashtag for today's webinar, hashtag #YouAreEssential. So if you're tweeting along, we'd love it if you would use that. And hashtags allow you to tag your content with important topics or themes, and they make it easier for people to find you because users can search hashtags, and that's how they can discover other people that are industry players and who are talking about relevant topics. Some Twitter conventions that you might want to know about are favoriting, which is very similar to the like function on Facebook. You can favorite a tweet to indicate your approval of it or your interest in that topic. You can also retweet, which is when you share someone else's message with your followers. And then a mention is where you include someone else's handle. And so that basically, you can use that because you want to thank them for an important, post or other tweet that they wrote, or you just want to, give them a shout out, basically. You can also create lists to help you keep track of different groups of people so you don't get overwhelmed by all of the information. And if you're new to Twitter, it definitely can be very overwhelming. And so it does help to organize lists according to whatever categories you like. And that way you can just look at your one list to get information about one topic, and then when you're ready, you can look at other lists to look about other information about other topics. One of the great ways to get started is just by following a bunch of people in your industry and observing what they're doing. And what do they do that seems to get other people to respond? And one of the things I wanted to mention is that Twitter might feel impersonal when you first start, but actually there's a lot of opportunity to create real personal connections on Twitter. And we had that example here at After College. So we had a student who discovered our blog, and she really liked it, so she sent us a tweet and said, hey, I would really like to intern with you guys. And we didn't have any internships available at that time, but we wrote back to her and said, sorry, we're not looking for interns right at this moment, but if you wanted to come into our office and do some job shadowing, we'd love to have you come in. And so she did. She came and spent a few hours at our office. She learned all about what we do, and then she became a guest writer for our blog. So it just goes to show you that one single tweet really can lead to lots of different connections. I wanted to take a look at Johnson & Johnson's university recruiting Twitter account, which is at J&J University. I'd like to point out on the left here, you can see they have a YouTube video which they pinned. And using the pinned feature is great. Basically, it shows that you have one tweet that you want everybody to see when they come to your page. It'll show up at the top of your Twitter page, and it'll be the first thing that people see. Another thing that's worth mentioning is you can link to video on Twitter, and it will show up on most every platform. The only exception is if people are accessing Twitter through another social media platform like Buffer or Hootsuite. In that case, they might not be able to watch the video, but if they're accessing it on their laptop or on their mobile phone and they're looking at Twitter, they should be able to see your videos. I also wanted to point out something interesting that J&J University is doing on this tweet with the Penn State handle. So you can see that they started with a period, and then they used the @ symbol and Penn State's handle. And this is a really important thing to know. If you're going to do a mention like this, and you start the tweet off with just the @ symbol, only people who follow you and the other person are going to be able to see that tweet. So if you add another extra character like a period, or you write hello or hey or something else first, then everyone is going to be able to see that tweet. And then finally, you can see the last tweet here that has the hashtag FF. And this is a really common feature on Twitter. People do this. It stands for Follow Friday. And basically what you do is you send out a tweet with that hashtag, and then you give a list of a bunch of people that you follow that are related to a certain topic. So in this case, it was MBA programs. And this is a great way of creating a community and sharing information and showing that you're not just on Twitter to promote yourself, but you're there to promote other people as well and just share useful information. Next, we're looking at the Intuit Students account, which is just at Intuit Students. And there are a couple things I wanted to point out of what they're doing on Twitter. So you can see the first tweet here, the job search advice you're taking too far. They've linked to a blog post, and this is a great thing to do. Sharing other people's content is really popular, great thing to do on Twitter. And the only thing that I would add is that if you want to do this, you should be sure to include either the name of the person where you got this blog post or the name of the place where it's going to, so people have an idea of where you're sending them. And so you can do this just by using the word via, or you can write H/T, which stands for hat tip, and basically that just is a way of thanking somebody for sharing information and showing them that you're grateful for what they do. Next, we have a tweet where they're using the hashtag social, and so this is just a good way of showing how you can let people know about the topic that the tweet is about, and it'll help people find you. And some of the ways that you can find hashtags if you're a little bit unsure about what to use for a hashtag is just by searching on Twitter. It has a discover function that will let you see what some of the common hashtags are. You can also start typing things in, and then it will usually give you a few suggestions. And you can also check out the trending hashtag, which will show up, and get an idea if what you want to write about is related to any of those topics. And then the third tweet here is a retweet, and I just wanted to mention about retweets. There's a few ways that you can go about doing them. One is you can just use the retweet button if you want to send out the exact same message to your followers. The other way is if you want to make some adjustments to it, you can copy it and paste it, and then type in RT on in your own box. Or if you are going to be making some changes, either because you need to shorten the message or you want to make sure that it makes sense in the new context, then be sure to use MT, which stands for modified tweet. I just wanted to point out that we have an article that's all about the top 5 university recruiting Twitter accounts on the employer blog. And so if you want to learn more and discover more details about the kinds of things I've just been talking about, be sure to check that out. And the link to that is on the tweet sheet. So again, you can find that at bit.ly/URessentials. Next, we're going to talk about Facebook, and I think that most of us are probably familiar with Facebook for personal purposes, but you can also use it to promote your company and specifically your university recruiting efforts. Here are a few things to keep in mind. One is that you don't have a character limit, and in fact, posts with more than 80 words get twice as much engagement, according to HubSpot. And images are very important for engagement and sharing. The same study from HubSpot found that 93% of the most engaging posts feature images. So as I was mentioning, photos and videos are great. You can also include links and hashtags in a Facebook post. Hashtags are not as commonly used on Facebook as they are on some other platforms, but you definitely can use them if you want to. One of the big advantages of using Facebook, especially from a university recruiting perspective, is that you get very detailed demographic information about your followers. So, you can find out their age, where they live, where they go to school, all of that kind of stuff. One of the big disadvantages is that it's increasingly difficult for followers to see your content. It's becoming much more of a pay-to-play situation. So if you are just posting and you're not paying for any advertising, only about 20% of the possible posts a person could see actually make it to their feed. And also one of the disadvantages potentially from a university recruiting perspective is that the teen demographic has been abandoning Facebook and replacing it with other platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. And I have a funny anecdote about this. So I recently went to a presentation by a high school student. She's a high school sophomore, and she said that she had a friend who was a freshman, and she was talking with some other students about whether or not she should start a Facebook account. And one of the upperclassmen said to her, "What, are you 40?" So that's kind of the perception of Facebook among the high school demographic. But it is still very popular among college students, so something to think about that for now you might still get a lot of college students on there, but of a sound technical difficulty. Okay, I think I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, so let me just go back a moment. So I was just saying that high school students are abandoning Facebook. It is still popular among college students. So as you're developing your social media strategy, that's something to keep in mind. Let's take a look at Nielsen's University Recruiting Facebook page. This is a great example of how they're able to combine lots of different types of posts and how they're able to think of things that would appeal to college students and get them excited about working for their company. So first of all, I love this example where they have an image with a quote. As we just mentioned, images do really well on Facebook. They get shared a lot. They get a lot of engagement. And the only thing that I would add is that if you are going to use an image that's your own image and a quote, you want to be sure that you add your company's logo or you add your blog URL. Basically, you just want to make sure that people know where that image came from, because as it gets shared, people won't necessarily know where it originated. So adding your logo is a way to make sure that your branding stays with the image no matter where it goes online. Also, they have the list of the top 10 reasons why working at Nielsen is awesome, which is a fun text-based note, and it also has some images in it. But I think this is really great because it's true to Nielsen's brand. Everybody knows them as the company that comes up with the top 10 lists. So they are both, reinforcing their brand as a company that comes up with top 10 lists, but also giving you reasons why you would want to work there and answering some of the questions that college students might have about this organization. And then we also have a list of the top 10 most tweeted about moments this past TV season. And so I think, college students are interested in Twitter and social media, they're interested in TV, so this is a great way of taking Nielsen's data and sharing it, and again, reinforcing their employer brand, while also sharing something that students might actually be interested in. So keep that in mind as a great model. Next, we're looking at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, and I love their Facebook page because they really do a good job of taking a theme and running it through the post. So, for example, this Mission to Mars virtual field trip post, it was so funny, it was so well written. They talk about, did you miss the bus? You can click the link and watch the recorded video. No permission slip required. Join a virtual Mars field trip. And you can see how they've used this hashtag Mars field trip for this particular event. They also have a trivia question, which you can see the photo of the astronaut, and it says, name this astronaut. And doing things like this, having a quiz or some sort of game is a great way to get people engaged and also to encourage them to learn more about your company. And why not make it a little bit more exciting by offering some kind of swag? So you'll send a free T-shirt to the first 5 people who answer, or something like that. So this is a again, great way to get people to want to learn more about you and to engage with you on social media. We also have on the After College Employer blog our list of the top 5 university recruiting Facebook pages. So again, if you want to learn a little bit more about how some of the top university recruiters are using Facebook, be sure to check that out. And you can find that on the tweet sheet, bit.ly/UR Essentials. And we'll also be sending it to you after the webinar is over. So be sure to check that out. So next, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, which, again, there's a good chance that you've used it for personal purposes, but don't dismiss it as a place to promote your company or organization to college students and recent grads. Don't forget that statistic that we looked at earlier. 74% of students use LinkedIn to research companies, so you want to make sure that that experience is as meaningful as possible when they go to find your page. A few points to keep in mind about LinkedIn updates. You have 250 characters that will show up in a status update, and if your update is longer than that, you can basically it'll show up as an ellipsis, and people will have to click more if they want to read the full update. You can include photos, videos, links, and mentions of other people and companies. And the overall vibe is more professional than other platforms, but that doesn't mean that your posts should be devoid of personality. One drawback to using LinkedIn for university recruiting purposes is that a lot of college students are reluctant to use LinkedIn. Maybe they've created a profile and then kind of left it at that, or maybe they've heard that they're supposed to create a profile, but they don't really know how to do it or who they should connect with. So it might not be the best place where you're going to find all of the college students. But again, they are going there to learn more about your company. So as long as they are doing that, you want to make sure that you have something that's interesting and worthwhile for them to see there. I wanted to look at Pandora's LinkedIn account, and I think that this is a really great example. Their LinkedIn account is not specific to university recruiting, but you can see both of these posts are related to the road crew, which is their term for their summer interns. And one of their links is to a blog, their Tumblr blog, and then the other one is just a photo that shows the CEO meeting with all of the summer interns. And they both just give you a great sense of, like, this is a fun company, it's a youthful company, and this is why you might want to come and intern with us or work with us as a recent college grad. Next, we're going to take a look at Pinterest. And Pinterest is a little different from some of the other platforms that we've looked at so far because it's visually driven rather than text driven. And every pin needs to have an image of some sort. You can also organize your pins into larger themed groups called boards. And each pin and board can have a text description, and you can also like and comment on other people's pins. And so because Pinterest is so visual, there can be the temptation to only post a photo and kind of leave it at that. But don't overlook the description feature of Pinterest, because that's how people can find you. They can search on Pinterest, and if you're using keywords in your description, then it's going to make it a lot easier for people to find you. And one of the big misconceptions about Pinterest is that it's only for food or crafts, but that's not the case at all. You can do a lot of different things on Pinterest, and regardless of what your brand is, even if you don't your brand, creativity. Okay, so I think I had a little bit of a sound disruption there, so okay. I think I had a little bit of a sound disruption. I was just saying that people might think that if you don't have a very visual brand, that there's no place for you on Pinterest. That's not the case at all. It just takes a little bit of creativity to figure out how to present yourself, and we're going to look at an example of that next. So I thought it would be fun to look at how Twitter presents themselves on Pinterest. So you can see that they have lots of different boards that include things like the Twitter HQ, the Twitter offices, their culture. And this is a great example of how you can use Pinterest as an employer. You would just say, think about how you can give potential employees. Okay, so sorry, I think we're having a little bit of a delay with the sound. So let me repeat myself. I was mentioning that Twitter has several different boards on Pinterest. You can see in the slide the Twitter HQ, their offices, their visitors, their culture. And these are great examples of how you can create boards on Pinterest even if you don't have a visual product to sell. And you want to use Pinterest as, think about it as a way to give potential employees a window into your company and your company culture. You can also use Pinterest to share useful information about the job search or job application process in general. It doesn't have to be only about your company. And in fact, the more helpful that you can be to job applicants and job seekers, the better. Not everything that you share has to come directly from you. You can repin infographics and as well. So next we're going to talk about Instagram. Similar to Pinterest, Instagram is a visually driven platform, and every post needs to have a photo or some sort of image, but it can also include text captions with hashtags, and hashtags are very popular on Instagram. And you can also send and view short videos up to 15 seconds. Instagram gives you the option to share images with all your followers or with specific individuals. And this feature is really helpful if you want to give an all of your. Since Facebook acquired Instagram back in 2012, it's not too surprising that Facebook has an active Instagram account and that it's full of fun and interesting photos. So again, if you think that you don't have anything to share on Instagram, check out some of Facebook's recent photos for ideas on the types of things you can post. Photos of the campus, employees celebrating Diwali or Halloween, and just the overall atmosphere and look of the campus. Instagram is a great way to provide a window into your company's culture, no matter what your products or services are. So now let's take a look at one company's overall social media strategy. I decided to take the example of Salesforce based on an interview I conducted with Jennifer Baldwin, Director of Future Force, which is the University Programs Department at Salesforce. So at Salesforce, the University Programs team is called Future Force, and they currently have one Marketing Programs Manager who oversees the social media as well as outward and inward communication. So she says basically this Marketing Programs Manager is like a mini marketing team. And the overall approach to social media is what Jennifer, the director of this department, says in this quote here. We're really focused on having that human touch, high touch experience, even though we're a large company. And we'll look at some examples of that in a moment. There are two Future Force specific accounts. There's one on Instagram and one on Twitter. And then occasionally Future Force will also share their university recruiting specific messages through other more general platforms that Salesforce has, like LinkedIn. And then one thing that's really cool about the Salesforce University Programs Future Force department is that they use Chatter to communicate with college student hires. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Chatter, it's basically like a mix between email and instant messaging. It's a function of the Salesforce platform, and people who work at Salesforce use it all the time to communicate with each other. So this is great because, as you know, in university recruiting, there can often be a very long time between when an offer is extended and when a new grad hire actually starts. And so using Chatter to share messages about what it's like to work at Salesforce, what's interesting things that different departments are working on, what you can expect in your first months on the job, all of this kind of information is both helping these recent grads or still students, as the case may be, to stay informed about what's going on at their future employer. It helps them feel confident that their job is still secure, that the company still wants them, and also it is helping them become acquainted with this function of the Salesforce platform that they're going to be using every day on the job when they start. So it really is able to achieve lots of different things. Now we're looking at a couple of tweets from the Future Force, which their handle is @SalesforceEDU. And I love this example because you can see how a potential applicant here has tweeted at them. They said, hey there, actively seeking MBA internship opportunities. Can someone advise on how to go about this? And the Future Force team actually wrote back and they said, hey, please visit our website, and they give them some information about how they can learn more about open internships. So this is a great reminder that social media is an opportunity to be social and helpful. It's not only about sending your message out, but it's about listening to the questions that people have and showing them that you value them and you care about them. Also, we have a few snapshots from Future Force's Instagram account. And you can see some of the interns at Salesforce that are, having fun in front of the Ferry Building here in San Francisco. and then also a tech talk. And so this is just, a good reminder that Instagram gives you the opportunity to show what your company is doing and why college students and recent grads should care. And if you are interested in learning more about how Salesforce uses social media for their university recruiting, we have that post on the employer blog, and you can read all about it in depth. And again, we'll send you the link. It's on the tweet sheet, but we'll be sending you the link after the webinar, so please be sure to check that out. Now that you've seen how each of the platforms can be used and what some of the industry leaders are doing, it's time to go out there and get started. I just wanted to leave you with a few final thoughts, though. One is to remember that social media is a conversation. Don't forget to listen and share useful information. It shouldn't only be about you. If you're stuck for the types of topics or content to share, think about the problems, questions, and frustrations that students and recent grads face. How can you help them to solve those? And remember, you are in a great position as a university recruiter because you get to go on campus, you get to talk to all these students, so you really know what's on their minds, and definitely use that to your advantage when you're sharing things on social media. Also, be sure to define your goals. What are you hoping to achieve, and what's the purpose? So, for example, getting likes and followers might not really do that much in and of itself, but if getting more likes and followers leads to better, more informed applicants, then that is something that's worth aiming for. You also want to be sure to measure your success. So you can do this on an individual level with things like bit.ly links. So I think when we talked about Twitter, I might have gone over this really quickly, but bit.ly is a link shortener, which is really useful on Twitter because, as we mentioned, you only have 140 characters. So if you're trying to share a really long URL, you're really not going to get much else that you can fit in there. But if you use something like bit.ly to shorten the link, you get a nice short link that's easy to share. Then also bit.ly allows you to track how many people are clicking on a link and where they're coming from. So on an individual level, this is really useful to see how popular was this individual tweet, how popular was this individual Facebook post, all of that kind of thing. So you want to measure your success in that way on an individual level. But also you can think about kind of the big picture with things like recruitment, selection, and employee engagement. And we talked about this with Jody Ordioni of Brandymix, a branding agency, and you can find that whole interview on the tweet sheet as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I know that a question that a lot of people probably have is how to get more followers if you're just starting out. And there are a couple of tips that I have for this. One is just to follow other people. The more people that you follow, the more people who are going to follow you back. Also, you want to look for industry leaders and follow them and see who they're following. If you're kind of trying to figure out how to find people, that's a great way to start. And also, you can participate in Twitter chats. So a lot of these Twitter chats take place, for an hour or so, and it's on a specific topic. So you can find ones that are already happening and you can join in. Or if you want, you can host one yourself. So you find a few people that tweet on similar topics or topics that that your followers will be interested in, and just get the word out there, and then that will also help find more followers for you. And then another great idea for lots of different platforms is running contests. That will definitely get people involved because people love swag, they love the chance of winning something. So you can definitely experiment with that as well. This webinar is part of our University Recruiting Essentials series, and we would love it if you would come and join us for our future webinars. So be sure to visit employer.aftercollege.com/webinars for the full schedule and to register for future webinars. And finally, we would love it if you would get in touch with us. So if you want to reach me directly, you can email me blog@aftercollege.com. The After College Twitter handle is @aftercollege. We also have a Pinterest board that is just for employers. It's called the Advice for Employers board, and we'd love it if you would follow us and join us there. And then we also have the LinkedIn University Recruiters group, and please join us there, and we would love to hear your thoughts and join us in the conversation there. So if you have any questions, the CEO, Roberto Angulo, is here with me, and the two of us are happy to field any of the questions that you may have. So please feel free to send those in through the questions function on GoToWebinar. And I would just like to leave you with a final thought. So this is another quote from Jennifer Baldwin, the director of Future Force, and she says, "This generation is very vocal. They're native social ambassadors, they're always on social media, and they're going to talk about you whether you're listening or not." So just a reminder that you do want to get out there and be on social media, because this is where your target audience is. So yeah, we'll be on hand for a little while to answer questions that come up. Okay, so we got one question, which is it recommended that companies have all of the different social media types, or is it better to select and focus on the top 2 or 3? And I would say for this one, it's going to depend a lot on your team and the bandwidth that you have within your team. So if you are just one person and you are going to be handling all of the social media on your own, in addition to all of your regular recruiting duties, you're probably just going to want to choose a couple of the platforms and stick with those. If you do have a bigger team and you have a little bit more bandwidth, one thing that you might want to experiment with is just starting an account on a bunch of different platforms and then just see where you get engagement. You might be surprised which platforms get more people and which platforms don't. So that would be my advice. Is you're going to want to kind of do it depending on your capabilities within your team, and be flexible and be willing to experiment and make changes as you learn what works and what doesn't. Okay, so I know one of the other questions is who should you put in charge of social media? So this is again going to vary depending on your organization and your team. Ideally, you're going to want to find somebody who wants to be involved. Also, you're going to look for someone who is tactful and appropriate and good at written communication, because obviously you don't want your social media to be full of typos and errors, because that's not going to project a very professional image of your company. But I would also add that it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. You really can dedicate 20 or 30 minutes a day, especially if you're using one of the platforms like Buffer or Hootsuite, because those allow you to schedule all of your posts ahead of time, and you can do multiple platforms. So you can post to both Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and LinkedIn, all of them within just one platform. And again, you can do that all kind of in one chunk of time, and then you can kind of forget about it till the next day when you come and check in on everything. So the top 5 Twitter accounts, I mentioned there's at J&J University and Intuit. The other ones that we include on our blog post are Liberty Mutual has a great one, and I can't remember the other 2. Oh, Salesforce is another one, and then I believe there's one more that we include on that in that post, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but we'll definitely send you the link to that post later, so you can have all 5 of them in one place. Yes, another question. Another question is there a certain amount of times you recommend posting each day, and is it different for each platform? And what I would say to this is it really can vary, and I really recommend checking out Kissmetrics, Kissmetrics, and HubSpot, HubSpot. Both of these websites have great blogs where they talk a lot about social media. They have great advice, and they have some of their research that they've done about how often you should post on different platforms. And what I would say is check out one of those posts and kind of use that as a guideline, but then you're probably going to make some observations after you're doing it for a while, and what works for you, and what's working best as far as your particular audience and when they seem to be most engaged. Okay, so there are a few more questions, but I'm afraid that we're running out of time. So if I didn't get to your question, please feel free to email me at blog@aftercollege.com. And again, we'll be sending you an email afterwards that has the recording of the webinar as well as the link to the tweet sheet that has all of the different sources that I've been referring to. So thank you very much for attending. We're so happy to have you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.